We're gonna talk about some things you guys can start doing right now to improve your front squat. For most people, the limiting factor for front squats is a combination of mobility and positioning. First, we're gonna talk about positioning, then we're gonna talk about the mobility tools that we need to get into those good positions. So as far as positioning, the two biggest things we're looking to avoid is rounding forward in our upper back and also leaning forward. Those are the two things that more than anything are going to hurt our front squat. So first thing we're gonna touch on is our rack position. So we want the barbell up on our delts and even digging into our throat a little bit. And the first sacrifice that we're willing to make is how much of our hands are on the bar. So if I'm capable of holding my hand in a full grip around the barbell, still have it up on my shoulders and into my neck, that's awesome. For most people, that's not the case, and we've got to make a sacrifice to get into that position. So that means if the barbell is only on my fingertips or even only on two of my fingertips, that is totally fine. My objective is for my hands to be pushing the barbell up onto my shoulders the best I can so that I'm in a nice stable position and I'm not fighting or in a vulnerable position for that barbell to roll off of my shoulders. The next thing we're gonna focus on for positioning is our elbows. So for a lot of people, what we find is their elbows want to naturally come in, or that seems to be a comfortable rack position. A cue that we will hear a lot is elbows up. And though we want that, I think something that's more beneficial is thinking elbows out. So even if my elbows aren't necessarily coming out, when I'm thinking about pushing them out, that's helping me keep a nice tall flat back, and it's gonna help prevent me from rounding forward. If that is a challenging position for you guys to hold, think about strengthening your upper back. So doing things like taffy pulls, bent over rows, so we're able to manage our shoulder blades in that good position without being caved forward. Once we're able to find that good rack position, the more upright we're able to stay in a front squat, the easier they're going to be. The front squat's a more quad dominant movement, and a couple things that may make it a little bit easier, more comfortable for you is slightly scooting your squat stance in to where we're relying more on our quads, and it makes it a little bit easier to stay more upright. Everybody's gonna be a little bit different. If you're already comfortable squatting with a wide stance, that's totally fine. But if we're looking to make these easier or more comfortable, that's the first thing that maybe we would try. From there, once we are squatting, unlike most squats where we tend to initiate with our butt going back first, with our front squat, we want our knees and hips initiating at the same time so that we can stay as upright as possible and avoid that chest dipping forward. We want to avoid that so that at the bottom of our front squat, we're not doing a good morning as much as we are a nice vertical squat. We want to be relying on our legs to get the barbell as much as possible and not the limiting factor being pulling the barbell back over the center of my foot. Now, some mobility things that we can do to make it a little bit easier to get into those good positions is going to be mostly dealing with our front rack position. So for most people, it's very common for it to be uncomfortable on the wrists, and over time that make it a little bit better, but we can avoid that with a good front rack position, or at least minimize it a little bit. For most people, the problem is getting their elbows up high enough to where we are not putting a lot of strain on our wrist. If my elbows are low and I've got the barbell bending my wrist down, that can certainly be a little bit uncomfortable. But if I'm able to get my elbows up nice and high, I'm not putting nearly as much stress on them, and it should be much more comfortable and in turn be easier to keep some good positioning. So what we find to be one of the most beneficial things is stretching out our lats. Our lats are a big muscle and they're also an internal rotator. If our lats are tight, it's gonna keep or prevent us from being able to get in that good front rack position. So a couple good stretches that we can do or positional things we can work on is either on a box or a bench, getting down on our knees, both elbows up on that box or bench. We're looking to get our ears in between our biceps. If this is already a little bit easy for us and we're just looking to improve our front rack position, we can even do these weighted by holding a plate in our hands. That plate's gonna be over our back and looking to get our head down as low as we can, taking some nice deep breaths, trying to open up our lats. If you don't have a box or a bench, we can even do these just on the ground. Down in the kneeling position, similar to a child's pose, we'll take one elbow at a time out onto the ground, again, trying to get our ear next to our bicep or tricep, replicating that same position as our front rack, getting that even a little bit deeper, taking some nice deep breaths, trying to relax and kind of pull or sit our butt back down towards our heels, getting a nice good stretch through our bicep and tricep, hopefully opening up that front rack position. Something else we can do in a similar vein is getting a band. You can start with a red, maybe work your way up to a green. We'll stand inside that loop. Other loop is going to be on our hand. We're going to hold that over our shoulder, and the band is going to be pulling our hand backwards and pulling us into that good front rack position. What we want to think about when we're doing that is keeping our tricep or bicep next to our ear and not letting our elbow flare out. We want to be working our elbow through that range of motion that we're looking to recreate in our front squat. Moving down and talking about our feet. Anytime that we want to be more of a vertical squatter, ankle mobility is going to play into that. So some things that we can do to work on our ankle mobility that are also measurable is taking a kettlebell, getting down on one knee. Kettlebell is something heavy, sitting that on top of our knee, doing the best we can to keep our heel on the ground, leaning over top of our toe, hanging out in that position for 30 to 45 seconds, then coming back off. We can measure the progress here by going maybe a fist distance away from a wall or a post, seeing how far we can get our knee over top of our toe or if we can touch the post. Do this exercise, work through a few reps of these, then remeasure and see if we've gained mobility. It's something that we can do in the short term, so in a session we can warm up our ankles to get more mobility, but doing this on a regular basis is just gonna gain more mobility overall. 2 more little tips that I think are helpful. 1, brace. You've gotta take a nice big breath before you go into your squat. If we don't, the likelihood of collapsing at the bottom is much higher. Second, keeping your eyes up. Your body is always gonna follow where your eyes are looking. If you're looking down at your feet, the likelihood that we're either gonna collapse or lean forward goes way up. So focus on the horizon, take that nice deep breath and brace. Don't spend extra time down in the hole. Do the best you can to fight for those elbows to be out. Spend the time working on your mobility, and front squats are certainly something that can become more comfortable, and our positioning can certainly improve. It just takes a little bit of time and effort working on the right things. If you guys wanna see more videos like this, let us know what movements or exercises you wanna see down below. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Stepping out flat, body hot like you like. Everything on the inside, all I can say, oh, nah, 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 nah. No compromise, putting up day and night.